Then the mechanism of dermal absorption of the drugs. So it mainly by the diffusion process. So I think you know the diffusion process means what? The movement of the particles from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That is, it is a passive transport and there is no energy is required. The moment. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Pharma Talk with Imran. Hello everyone, welcome back to a new topic called as dermal penetration of the drugs. So in this video we are going to focus on two main topics, that is definition of dermal penetration, then what is the importance of studying this one in drug delivery. So first we have to understand the structure of skin to simplify this concept. So the skin is made up of mainly three layers. One is epidermis, another one is dermis, another one is hypodermis. So epidermis, it acts as protective barrier to the skin, and dermis, it is the middle layer which is made up of connective tissue. So epidermis, it is the upper layer which acts as protective layer. Then dermis just below the epidermis and which contain connective tissue. Here we can see the connective tissues. Then the innermost layer is called as hypodermis. The hypodermis holds the skin and underlying structures. And very important layer, that is the uppermost layer, that is the part of epidermis, that is called as stratum corneum. So it acts as main barrier and prevent the dermal penetration of the drugs into the skin. So now the pathways of drug penetration. So the first one is intercellular route, means this method allows the drugs to travel between the cells. So the drug is going to travel between the cells. It includes the pathways through hair follicles and sweat glands. So it includes hair follicle and sweat glands. Then the mechanism of dermal absorption of the drugs. So it mainly by the diffusion process. So I think you know the diffusion process means what? The movement of the particles from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That is, it is a passive transport and there is no energy is required. The movement of the molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration is due to concentration gradient. The factors which are going to affect the dermal penetration is, the first one is physiological factors, then physico-chemical factors, then environmental factors. So physiological factors include the thickness of the skin, then hydration level and age. Then physico-chemical factors include lipophilicity and molecular size of the drug. Lipophilicity means what? It is lipid soluble. If the drug is more lipid soluble, then it will easily cross the biological membranes, so that the penetration is more. And the molecular size, if the drug molecules particles having less molecular size or less particle size, it also benefited, or it also increases or enhances the penetration of the drug. Then environmental factors, so like temperature is there and humidity is there, it also play a important role in penetration of the drug. Then the role of stratum corneum. So here stratum corneum, it is the last uppermost or outermost layer of the epidermis. So it mainly provides a barrier and it will prevent the inner components of the skin from the harmful substances and pathogens. So similarly, it also create a barrier for the absorption or movement of the drug into the skin. So here we have to use the Fick's law of diffusion to understand the concept. Here we can simplify this one. So the movement of the particles, that is diffusion flux, from a region of higher to lower concentration is directly proportional to the particles concentration gradient. So we can use these equations, this formula. Here J means what? J means diffusion flux. Here diffusion flux means how fast the drug is moving. Then D is the diffusion coefficient or diffusivity, that is how easily the drug moves, that is diffusion coefficient. Then the change in the concentration of the particle, or you can say the change in the concentration of the particle, that is change in the concentration gradient, that is dq by dx. dq by dx means dq means the change in the concentration of the particle, that is concentration gradient, and dx means change in the position. Overall we can say dq by dx means concentration gradient of the particle.